Okay, so part 2. All right, let's find out. Are you for or against prison? We should have prison. There are 4 of you. Agree? Yes or no to prisons? Do we have prisons or not? 3. Do you want a third option? Sorry, I don't understand. Okay. Should we have prisons or not? Yes, we should have. Okay, 4, 5, 6. Agree? Okay. Should we have prisons or not? Prisons or not? Not? 4, 5 agree? Did you talk about it? Did you do this or did you just get on? Yes or no? Yes. Okay, so I'm not. Usually, that's the same. I think we can find other ways to discipline people. I mean, that terrifies me that now I ask you, should we have the death penalty? Should we kill someone because they did a crime? Yes or no? But this class is not about that, but the idea that you all think, yes, we have to have prisons, shows that the ideological state apparatus idea really works. Because the prison is an institution invented to deal with the problem of people who don't break the law, who don't obey the law. There are other ways to do that, to do re-education, to do discipline, to do, rather than lock people away in prison, you can do community service, community obligation, and so on. The injustice of prisons is very high. It focuses very much on working class and black and brown communities. And usually the people who make major crimes with a lot of money can pay for lawyers to get out of having to do prison. So it's not a neutral system. Whereas community education or re-education in the community would be different, but it would take more resources, so it would cost more to do. But that's by the way. The idea that that's what prison shows that the prison is an accepted institution in our society. We have to think critically about that. All right, it's very difficult to think which angle to take today, but it is the case that the Vietnam government took over some of the French and American prisons. They just kept them. The fact is, the colonial imprisonment was a key part of the French occupation, right? And there was a power tool to control the revolutionary movement. At the same time, the Communist Party is very proud and will tell you about how without the French prisons were very important for the development of the independence movement, of the anti-colonial movement, of the communist parties, because Tom Tan, our leader, died 40 years ago yesterday, was in charge of the head of the revolutionary school inside the Condal prison. You can find out about this in the Condal Museum. It's closed now, but you could have gone there up till October last year. And it tells the story of the formation of a kind of school in the terrible conditions of the prison, right? It shows you some cells, and there are tiger cages, and there's what's called the rice grinding machine. It was a cell inside which the prisoners had to walk around pushing this heavy stone, which was grinding rice, right? And that was called hell within hell, because it was really hot and many died pushing this. But in those terrible conditions of Condal prison, they built the revolutionary school, and many people, many who went in as just criminals or as nationalists, many great heroes of the revolution became revolutionaries by learning about Marxism, Leninism inside the revolution school, inside the prison. Two of the great leaders of Vietnam were inside prison. All. Right, they won Ho Chi Minh in the prison in Hong Kong, Dr. Tan, so on and so on and so on. Madame Binh, who went to negotiate in Paris, etc., etc. Okay, but also many died because these prisons were horrible. It's terrible conditions. But there's a sense in which the prison is also a revolutionary school. But the resistance inside the prison, right? It had to be a covert school, a school that hid itself inside the prison. So think about how the prison makes you sit in a certain way, but then you want to do something else, like read the works of Lenin or talk about Ho Chi Minh or whatever. You have to do that secretly. After dark, after the lights went out, using sticks and dirt to write, rather than to write on paper, pens and stuff. Feel it. So, it's interesting that if you think of the way that museums present the prison experience under French, the thing that comes out in focus in Vietnam, and especially the Tongan Museum, because you can't see that, but in the Southern Museum of Southern Women, you will see the story of how we learned to be communists inside the prison. So the prison is a kind of contested space. And remembering its history is remembering it in a contested way. Here's the prison, and it was terrible, and yet, at the same time, so Fellow has this concept of a penal state, which is kind of a way of telling the story of the prisons of, you know that a part of it is history, and you can visit some of the sites, and know about them. I mean, you can go to Phuket and come down and see the actual prisons, and the guys will tell you the story of that, about the revolutionary school and about the terrible conditions. Can I ask how many of you have been to come down? Anyone? Anyone been to come down? It's kind of grim, but beautiful, aren't it? I mean, this is also crazy. What were the French thinking to make a terrible visit on a place that is now the #1 tourist resort? And Angelina Jolie and she married to Leonardo DiCaprio? No. Brad Pitt. Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt had their holidays there. Not in the prison, in the Five Senses 5-star resort. The French did this a lot, all over the world, in fact. Famous French prison island in Guyana, in South America. It's called Devil's Island, and it's in the Caribbean. They have an island in If outside Marseille. That was a prison island. And they come down for a few others in Vienna. Why? Because you can't escape easily from an island. Right? And you can go to Quebec and see a small French prison there, which is really a terrible one. Horrible conditions. Or you can go to now there are 5 or 6 different prisons, and from the French period and the American period. And you can hear from the tour guides the story of the Revolutionary School. Now, also, you get that story from the museums that are not prison museums as such, but are museums that tell the story of the prison, like the War Remnants Museum and the Museum of Southern Women. And inside the museum, War Remnants Museum, you see there is a example of the tiny cages of the French prison. But on the boards that tell the story, it tells the story of the Revolutionary School that doesn't count. So it doesn't talk about the prison itself. It talks about, despite prison, the revolution was built on that basis. This is a picture of the, sorry you can't see it very well, that's on Saigon. Why we're using the concept of penal scape as a landscape, to reference architecture, a landscape of prison museums in which a visitor can come and hear the story of prisons as part of the revolutionary movement. But the actual heritage, the actual prisons are not where the prison museums are. Right? So, War Remnants Museum, in the French period, there was just a French villa, just a house. Right? It was not an actual site. The actual sites are being covered up. Right? There's one you can visit. I forget what it's called. It's in District 9. You can get permission, you have to get special permission to go and visit. There's a temple there, a shrine, but also some dungeons. But the really famous, terrible prisons that you can read about in Graham Greene or in the memoirs of Madame Mink, or things like that, are the Maison Centrale, or Bot Catanat. Ever heard of Bot Catanat? On Catanat Street, where the Department of Culture, the Ministry of Culture is right now, you can find, I'm not talking about this yet, you can find the Ministry of Culture now is in the building that was the former police security. The police, Central Police prisons where Madame Mink was locked up and tortured in the dungeons in the basement. They're now flooded. You can't visit them, but they are still there. Terrible dungeons. And then this prison, Maison Centrale, where they put French prisoners upstairs and Vietnamese prisoners in the basement. And Madame Bean and other memoirs, they talk about how they would ask the French prisoners to throw down some cigarette. Things like that. But this is not, doesn't exist anymore. What happened to it? They decided to build a bigger prison, the French. They couldn't fit enough people into that prison. It was built for 600, and they had something like 1,600 prisoners inside. Too many. So they had, first of all, they built an overflow prison, which you cannot, or you can visit the site, but you can't find it. It was in District 7. Did you know there was a prison near here? In fact, You can't quite see it. If you're in the room on the other side, we can see it because I used to live there. This prison, Maison Central, had too many prisoners, so they moved some of them to a former zoological building next to that's Lotte Mart. And this area here, which is 100 North, was the site of the former prison for women, revolutionary political prison for women under the French. Now, nobody talks about that because, first of all, the land was built into apartments. It was one of the first big apartment blocks in Ho Chi Minh City. That's interesting. How did they manage to get the land to build apartment blocks? Well, nobody wanted to build there because it has quite a bad history. Blocks. Many revolutionaries were killed there. And if you were killed, right, executed, you can't really, I don't know what you think about blocks. So no one, they got that land free, they could build building, but they don't talk about its former history. There's not even a plaque to say. Right? I only found this from some newspaper article from 1933. Because house prices, right? You don't want your apartment value to go down because there are ghosts. The same with Lord Pratanat. There's a plaque actually outside Lord Pratanat which says the story, but it's now the Department of Culture. And the Maison Centrale is now the Sciences Library. Have any of you ever been to the Sciences Library in the big one? The #1 Sciences Library for Vietnam, that was the site of the former prison. In the grounds, there is one statue and one plaque. Okay, because it's break time, we'll take a little break.